The sun blazed across the endless New Mexico plains, setting the horizon aflame in gold and dust. The air shimmered with heat, and the wind carried the faint smell of sage and leather from the far hills. "Jacob!" Reed wiped the sweat from his brow as he leaned against the old wooden post by his well. His ranch, the Silver Mesa, was a lonely stretch of land, 50 miles from the nearest town, and even farther from trouble. Or so he thought. He'd lived quietly since the war, raising cattle, mending fences, and minding his own business. Life was simple until that day when the silence broke. It was midday when he saw her. At first she looked like a mirage, tall, staggering across the dry land, the sun painting her figure in waves of light. As she drew closer, Jacob realized she was unlike anyone he'd ever seen. She was an Apache woman, but towering, her shoulders strong, her steps heavy with exhaustion, her hair long and wild like black fire in the wind. Blood streaked her arm and her skin glistened with sweat and dust. She looked ready to collapse. Instinct took over. Jacob rushed to the well, drew a bucket of water and held out his tin cup. "Ma'am, you look about ready to fall over." "Here," he said quietly. The woman stopped a few feet away, her dark eyes narrowing with caution. The world had not been kind to her kind. Cowboys, soldiers, settlers, none of them had given her people kindness, only bullets and betrayal. But something in Jacob's tone carried no threat, only concern. She stepped forward slowly. Her shadow fell over him as she took the cup. Her hand, large and calloused, brushed against his fingers. She raised the water to her lips, and for a moment the world went still. The wind stopped, the birds fell silent, and even the sun seemed to pause as she drank. Jacob watched her drain the cup in one long gulp, then dip it again into the bucket. She didn't speak until the third drink. Her voice was deep and calm, edged with fatigue. "You are not afraid?" she asked, her English heavy with an accent. Jacob shrugged. "You don't look like you came here to harm me," he said simply. "Just thirsty." She studied him for a moment as if weighing his soul. "Many men fear me," she said finally. "They call me a giant." Jacob smiled faintly. "Then I guess I'm not like most men." The woman tilted her head slightly, almost curious. She looked around at the small ranch, the corral, the cabin, the fence line fading into the distance. "You live alone?" "Been that way a long while," Jacob answered. "Name's Reed, Jacob Reed." She nodded once. "I am Naya." Her gaze turned toward the distant hills, where the air shimmered like glass. "My people are near. I was sent to find water." Jacob nodded toward the well. "You found it. You're welcome to take what you need." Naya's expression softened just a hint. "You are kind," she said, her voice low. "That is rare among your people." Jacob looked down, his jaw tightening. "Kindness don't cost much," he muttered. "But I reckon it's worth a lot." For a moment, they just stood there, two souls from worlds apart, bound by the simplest of things, water. But even as they stood in the stillness, the horizon felt heavy, as if eyes were watching from the hills. Naya's hand went to her side where a knife was strapped under her belt. She turned sharply toward the west. Jacob followed her gaze, but saw nothing, just open land and the faint glimmer of dust. "Something wrong?" he asked. "I must go," she said abruptly. "You have done me honor. Jacob Reed, I will not forget." And before he could respond, she was gone, moving with astonishing speed, vanishing into the prairie like smoke. Jacob stood alone by the well, her words echoing in his mind. "I will not forget." That night, as the sun dipped behind the hills and the sky burned crimson, Jacob couldn't shake the unease in his chest. Coyotes howled in the distance and the cattle grew restless. He sat on his porch polishing his old rifle, the stars coming out one by one. Something was changing in the wind. By midnight, a storm began to gather, not one of rain, but of fate. Jacob didn't know that the woman he gave water to was no ordinary wanderer. Naya was the daughter of an Apache war chief, and her people were being hunted by soldiers who had raided their camps, taken their land and left them scattered. She had come looking for water, and found instead a man who showed mercy when no one else would. And the Apache did not forget mercy. When Jacob finally went to bed, the plains were silent again. But miles away, under the cold light of the moon, Naya stood before her father, Chief Hosa, her voice strong despite her wounds. "The man at the ranch gave me water," she said. "He is alone." He showed no fear. The chief's eyes were deep pools of thought. "Then he is a man of heart," he said quietly. and such men are rare. The next dawn, the horizon trembled. Dust rose in great clouds as hundreds of riders moved silently through the valleys. Apache warriors, faces painted for war, spears glinting in the morning light. Jacob stepped out onto his porch, coffee in hand, and froze. The earth was rumbling. From the far ridge, an army of horsemen appeared, spreading like wildfire across the plain. 300 strong, they surrounded his ranch in perfect silence. Jacob's breath caught in his throat. "What in God's name?" he whispered. Then, from among the riders, one figure emerged, Naya, seated on a white horse, her gaze calm and commanding. The same woman he had given water to stood now like a queen of the earth, her hair flowing in the wind, her warriors waiting behind her. Jacob's heart pounded as she rode forward and stopped. A few paces from his fence, the morning sun caught her face and she raised her hand. "Jacob Reed," she called out. "You gave water to an Apache. Now the Apache give you their protection." The morning light spread across the plains like fire, burning through the mist that hung low over the Silver Mesa ranch. Jacob Reed stood frozen, staring at the impossible sight before him, hundreds of Apache warriors encircling his land in perfect silence. Their horses stamped and snorted, the sound echoing like thunder across the open fields. The air was thick with tension, heavy enough to stop a man's breath. He could feel the power of it, the ancient rhythm of something far greater than himself. And at the center of it all sat Naya, no longer the weary stranger who had come to his well. She was a leader now, her face calm and fierce. She dismounted, walking toward him, each step deliberate. "You gave me water when I had none," she said. "You gave me life when I was hunted. The Apache remember such things." Jacob nodded slowly. "You don't owe me anything," he said. "I only did what any decent man would." Her gaze sharpened. "There are few decent men left," she replied. "Your soldiers came last moon. They burned our homes. They took our children. They called it justice. You, Jacob Reed, gave kindness when your people gave only fire." Chief Hosa rode forward then, majestic, solemn, eyes like carved stone. "White man," he said deeply, "you gave water to my daughter. You showed mercy. Among our people that binds souls. From this day you are under the protection of the Apache." Jacob stood speechless. I don't understand." Chief Hosa stepped closer. "Because mercy is sacred. You saw not an enemy but a person. You are now a brother in spirit." He turned to his people and raised his hand. The warriors dismounted, working beside Jacob, mending fences, tending animals, sharing food. By nightfall, the ranch that had once been silent was alive with firelight, songs, and laughter. That night, as Jacob and Naya sat beside the fire, she said quietly, "Tomorrow soldiers come. They followed me. They bring death." Jacob's eyes hardened. "Then we fight." Naya turned toward him. "You would fight beside us?" "You called me brother," Jacob said. "Family don't run when danger comes." At dawn, the warriors prepared. The horizon glowed with fire as the soldiers approached. Jacob stood beside Naya, his rifle steady. Chief Hosa raised his voice. "Let them learn that kindness breeds strength, not weakness." Then the thunder of hooves shook the earth. The battle that followed would be remembered for generations. The Apache fought not for revenge but for dignity. Jacob Reed fought not for pride but for honor. When it ended, the soldiers retreated, leaving silence and sunrise. As the Apache prepared to move on, Naya placed her hand on Jacob's shoulder. "You gave water to one," she said softly, "and earned the hearts of many." Jacob smiled. "Guess I just did what was right." She nodded. "And that, Jacob Reed, is what makes you one of us." He watched as 300 warriors rode off into the dawn. The same wind that once carried loneliness now carried the whispers of brotherhood. And deep down, Jacob knew that kindness, once given, never truly dies. It echoes forever in the hearts it touches. If this story touched your heart, make sure to subscribe to our channel. Every story here reminds us that courage, kindness, and humanity still matter in this world. Don't miss the next tale of honor, love, and redemption. Hit that subscribe button and become part of our storytelling family today.